Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to the Business Spotlight series. I'm here with Andy Mee from the Alcohol-Free Drinks Company. How you doing, Andy?
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Mike. Thanks for your time this afternoon.
You're most welcome. Great to have you on. So if you could give us an introduction really as to who you are, what is it you do, how long you've been doing it for, please, Andy.
No problem at all. So, yeah, my name's Andy Mee. I'm the founder of the Alcohol-Free Drinks Company. I've been trading now for over 4 years. I started my journey having been in corporate world for many, many years. I would only have described myself as a social drinker. I wasn't somebody with a problem with alcohol. Those kind of people are people who sit on park benches with a bottle of white lightning. During lockdown, however, at the time I was married and my ex-wife and I had a chain of indoor soft play centres. And of course, they closed during lockdown. And my drinking then started to spiral out of control. And it came to a head at the end of 2020. And I gave up for a while, went back to it. And on the 5th of March 2021, my now ex-wife asked me to leave because of my drinking, which was the last day I ever consumed alcohol. And I'd started to buy a few bits online as I started to progress through 2021. And I reached what I call my T-junction moment, which was in the July when I went into a small flat. And that T-junction moment was quite simply, do I go to Morrison's and start buying wine because that's what everybody expects me to do, or do I actually do something positive with my life? And I'm pleased to say I chose that path. I decided, I'm not a religious person, but I believe in fate, and the universe hands you certain things and whether you choose to take them or not. And when I checked and found the URL alcoholfreedrinks.co.uk was available, I went, well, that's my sign. That's what I'm going to do. And so from registered the company on the 17th of July and did my first food and drink festival on the 7th of August, which was a time when my son, who still works for me in the business, and I stood at Roundhay Park in Leeds with about £3,000 worth of product around our feet. And I said to my son, well, I've either just bought an awful lot of products I'm going to end up drinking myself, or this is the start of the business. And so, yeah, that's kind of where it started from. And I am not now anti-alcohol. I mean, obviously, tourism is part of my business. I will go into pubs and everything like that. I really don't care. My issue is choice. I just want to deliver more choice to more people who don't want to drink alcohol.
Fantastic. What a great story. And thank you for sharing that and starting us with the interview with that. So in terms of the that choice, please expand on that. What's your experience?
Well, so at the time I was living in Wetherby.
Yeah.
And Wetherby originally was a coaching in town, equidistant between London and Edinburgh and Hull and Liverpool. And so it was full of pubs. And when I moved in 20 odd years ago, there was nearly 20 pubs in Wetherby. And when you start going out as a sober person, you start to realize a number of things. And in all the pubs in Wetherby, there was only one product, and it was Heineken Zero. My journey to start the company started in a curry house. I went for a curry post-lockdown, and I said to the guy, I'm sober. What have you got? He said, sparkling water, orange juice, or Diet Coke. And I said, look, none of those three flavors go with a chicken madras. I wanted a cold beer. And so bless him, he let me go around the corner to the co-op and I bought some bloody awful Beck's Blue, but at least it had the flavour that I was after. So in terms of choice, my issue is that for whatever reason, and it may be someone like myself, or it may be a woman who's pregnant, or more importantly, the drink drive laws that are now going to come into effect in England, which are currently in Scotland. You should have every venue that sells alcoholic products should have a choice of non-alcoholic alternatives. And that's my goal. That's what I'm doing. That's what I'm making my business to do. I started off originally B2C, as I said, but very quickly realised the gap in the market was B2B. And in fact, the curry house that I went to became my first ever B2B customer. And it's about just getting people to understand. And it's changed in the 4 years. And 4 years ago, it was kind of going into venues saying, please believe me, you need to stock this stuff. And now the big boys are all into alcohol-free. I don't stock any blue label product. I don't do any of the mass market product. I champion independent producers because I think alcohol-free is an opportunity for independent producers to actually break the cartel. I probably shouldn't use that word, but the grip at which the large drinks industry, not just in the product that they produce, but the supply chain. You know, the biggest distributor in this country is a company called Matthew Clark, which is owned by a company called C&C, and C&C is owned by Diageo. So your top-down pressure on the products that actually get into the vast majority of the pubs. And I also believe that choice is really important for publicans who are struggling. They're all struggling. I mean, obviously, a lot of people within business and a lot of people who will view your business focuses are struggling because of the increasing costs. But the fundamental thing for people who stock alcoholic product is if they don't stock a choice of alcohol-free, then they're going to miss out on any number of people. My son also does the odd shift in a bar in Harrogate. And 3 weeks ago, he had a couple come in and they said, oh, what alcohol-free have you got on draft? And he said, we haven't got any. And he said, okay, thanks, and walked out. And the biggest growth sector actually for me in my business at the moment is draft beer. Because draft beer, I always describe it like this: if you're stood there with a bottle of Beck's Blue in the middle of a pub, you really are identifiable as somebody drinking alcohol-free. Mm-hmm. If you're stood there with a pint, and we're fairly one-dimensional creatures, particularly us blokes, the ability to go up to a bar, ask for a pint, it gets poured in front of you, the condensation's on the glass, it gets put in front of you, and you pick it up. It's a ritual as much as actually anything else. And it's something that we've all grown up with. So now when you can do that with an alcohol-free beer that tastes amazing, there's any number of independent produced products that I could give you, and you just go, I would assume that that's an alcoholic beer. And there's some amazing people, a lot actually here in Yorkshire. I'm blessed by being based in Yorkshire for the producers based in Yorkshire who are producing some fantastic alcohol-free product.
Is that on draft that they're producing it as well?
Yeah,
So you've got the option.
Yeah.
Who are those people?
There's any number of them. So there's the likes of Colbath Brewery in Harrogate, Saltaire, Ilkley, Hambleton's. You've got Wold Top over in, and there's just any number of them that are just really producing some fantastic stuff. Northern Monk were one of the real pioneers. As I started, Northern Monk were really pushing the envelope. The big brand in alcohol-free is a brand called Mash Gang. Mash Gang are a cuckoo brewer. They don't own their own product. They get other people to brew it, and they're actually brewed at North, which is now obviously owned by Kirkstall. So yeah, there's a lot of people around here who make really good alcohol-free. Kirkstall also do their own alcohol-free as well, and all of those brands, producers that I've mentioned, also do it on draft. Jim up in Harrogate, he does both of his lager and his 1571 on draft.
So the market for you is B2B, and it's opening up more draft options, or an option at least in public houses. I guess those are independent as well, because getting into Tide venues obviously is a harder.
Really hard.
It's a great in terms of your mission or your purpose. You've got a personal one there, obviously from your backstory, and then you've obviously got the sort of collective one with the independents, which is fantastic, and where it's the future is, I guess, for you in terms of growing the business. Would that be right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I always say I don't particularly need Diageo's help, and they certainly don't need mine. Other than the thing I will say about them is the emphasis they put behind Guinness Zero has been phenomenal. And it's when you look at things like the Six Nations and the post pads and the centre circle and all that kind of stuff, all being Guinness Zero. That's been brilliant because it's breaking down the barrier to normalization. Because for choice, for what I'm trying to do, it has to become normal. And in Gen Z, it is, but up to baby boomers of my generation, it's not, and it's not normalized. Although I will say I was at a barbecue in Barnsley, and I won't attempt to do a Barnsley accent a few weeks ago, and there was a chap sat next to me, and he said, if you'd have told me 5 years ago I'd have been sat here drinking alcohol-free Guinness, he said, I'd never have believed you. And it's that actually has to happen. The normalization of drinking alcohol-free will then lead to further to the choice element coming into the play much more.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think there'll be a lot of things that, in 100 years' time, people will look back on and go, well, it's history repeating itself. We look back 100 years ago, what were they doing? And people will look back on us 100 years ago and go, what on earth were they?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you look at it, 74 years ago, the NHS still were prescribing cigarettes to get people to cough because they believed that it was helping them to free up stuff on their lungs. I say I don't knock alcohol, but actually I do occasionally, and here goes. So alcohol is a poisonous carcinogenic substance. It's classified by the World Health Authority in exactly the same vein as asbestos. And sadly in the news, there's been some awful things where homebrewed ethanol is killing people. And it is a problem that people don't want to address. The NHS, the cost to the NHS of Friday and Saturday nights through alcohol abuse is horrendous. And people just don't want to. And I support the Alcohol Change Stop Sober Shaming campaign because I believe that sober shaming is a blight on society. If you give up smoking, no one stands there with a packet of Marlboro trying to stuff one in your face. But announce that you've given up drinking, and dependent on the age bracket you're in, you'll find people go, what? Oh, you can have one, can't you? What's the matter with you? And it's that has to change. And society has to look at itself and go, actually, that's not acceptable. As I say, Gen Z are definitely turning their back on it. I was at a meeting in Loughborough University a few months ago, and Loughborough University 7 years before had done a survey of their students, and 98% of the students said they would be drinking alcohol at some point during the week. They did a survey about 7 weeks before this meeting because their student union bar is going bust, and 50% of the people at Loughborough University don't drink alcohol at all, and only those few will do it, but they do it in a mindful way. They will do it not every week, not every day, that sort of thing. And I've in fact got two customers, Leeds Trinity Uni and Bradford Uni, whose student union bars have now gone alcohol free. And that's at the request of the students. Sure. And to a number of people of my sort of generation, what do you mean a student union bar's gone alcohol free? Well, but it's the way that they want to be. They're as likely to be in a 24-hour gym at 10 o'clock at night as they are going to be in a pub. And pubs, I believe, have got to adapt to become almost what they were in the beginning. To your point of everything is cyclical. A public house was a meeting point for a community. That's what a public house started to be. It was not come here and get pissed. It was that community hub. And now people who are so isolated with social media and all this kind of stuff, and you see them all head down like that. Yeah. I believe it will be cyclical, that it will come to meeting spaces, but they're not going to be quite the same as your spit and sawdust pub. The wet pub, I think its days are really numbered. because people just don't do what wet pubs expect. Go in, sit down, drink, go home.
Yeah.
You have to have more. Going back to Loughborough, when they surveyed the students, they said, what is the things you want from the student union bar? And the number one thing was board games. So they wanted to have an interactive community space around board games that then gave them the opportunity to socialise. And
Great
that's
stuff.
what
that's
what a public house was. It was a place to socialise.
I think in terms of, you can see it reflective of lots of things these days where, there's, I don't know, it's a very deep topic we could go into, but in terms of industrialization changing and politics changing and people trying to fight for old ways, but naturally things will, as you say, as different generations come up and say, hang on, that's not for me. That's where you have the faith in things which will develop that are beyond our control, but it comes down to people's choice based on historical kind of reference points where they have a choice, really. Which
exactly.
So moving on to yourself then, in terms of your business journey, Andy, and what the last 4 years have been like, if there's one word that you could use to describe that and perhaps then expand on that, what would that be?
I think if it's one word, it would be challenge. There is a challenge every day. Initially, the challenge was actually just getting people to engage. The challenge now, as I grow, I now, for instance, I import wine from the south of France. I'm UK exclusive on a range of pre-mixed cocktails, including the only real competitor to that well-known Christmas drink beginning with B, which is a kind of milk-based drink, which I'm under a contract not to compare it to. But so I've got that. So the challenges along the way, I've mentioned to you earlier, I've just moved into a new warehouse. I started on 120 square feet in Wetherby storage. That was my home. And I've moved up progressively through to the point at which I was at 800 square feet, absolutely rammed, couldn't move. And the day I nearly tripped over carrying a box and killed myself, I thought, I've got to change this. So the challenge now is working capital. It's perhaps the thing that I didn't pay enough attention to. The more I've grown, the more working capital I need to sustain the business and get it to grow. And that is tough. The challenge of the warehouse was kind of, where do you go from 800 square feet? You don't go to 1,000. I went to a couple of units on places like Thorpe Arch and Marston Moor and looked at 1,000 to 1,200 square feet. And it just didn't feel right. It just thought, again, this is going to be a little kind of stepping stone bit. And now I've found a fabulous unit with a really great landlord, but it's 3,500 square feet. So your cost base obviously dramatically increases. I've come out of a storage environment, so I've now got various different bills to pay that I didn't have to pay before. But it's that leap of, I keep saying to my son, I kind of feel like I'm at the roulette wheel and I've just chucked everything onto black and the ball's spinning, and it's like, where's it going to land? Because it is a challenge. The actually running a business and growing a business is a challenge all the time. And then the challenge of actually getting into venues. In the first instance, as I said before, 4 years ago, it was like, look, honestly, believe me, if you stock this stuff, people will drink it. Because there were a number of people who, of a similar age to me, who remember Caliber and Barbican as being the dreadful alcohol-free beers. And they were like, no one's ever going to touch it. There's no call for it. No one asked for it. And fortunately, we've gone through that now because people are understanding, actually more and more people are asking for it and I need to stock more product. But the challenge then is to get them to understand that the independent producers are producing the best product. I mean, I live here now in Tadcaster, and of course got Molson Coors and John Smith's Heineken and Sam Smith's. Yeah. So, you know, I'm in an area where 3 major producers, well, if you look back 4 years ago, what, for instance, Molson Coors were producing, you know, was next to nothing. But now everything that they produce pretty much everything that they produce a zero version of it. So even the, as we call it in the trade, the Tadcaster lager that's called Madri, which has been no closer to Madrid than I have, is, you know, there's a zero version of that. So you see now that the bigger players are really putting a lot of emphasis behind it. And there's the cynics that say, well, of course they're doing that because of the alcohol duty, and they're able to actually make more money at it. Because one of the things that I get, a challenge I have to overcome is, well, why is it the same price? Well, you know, for the independent producers that I work with, well, it's a lot of process. And if you want to buy an inline sterilization, pasteurization unit as you start to fill kegs, that costs you a lot of money. Whereas, you know, kind of over the road, they, far be it for me to suggest, may well be profiteering out of alcohol-free products.
Well, we've covered some challenges there, and obviously the opportunities in terms of the marketplace growing and how the B2B side of things will grow for younger generation coming into public houses as spaces to use as community. In terms of your inspiration doing what you do, I could kind of hazard a guess from what we've just talked about, but just sort of reflecting in your own words, what is it that kind of keeps you going, that drives you to do what you're doing at the moment, Andy?
I know it sounds a bit cheesy, but I'd like to make a difference. You know, I don't believe, and I know myself very well, I don't believe that had I have had the choice available to me, I wouldn't have become alcohol dependent in the way I did. But I believe that if society can stop sober shaming completely and normalize the drinking of alcohol free, then anybody who wants to really kind of monitor what they're drinking, and they're not going to feel ashamed, they're not going to feel what tends to happen in a lot of pubs is, particularly if there's one on draft, the guy who wants to, you know, say in around a 4, they'll want to moderate his drinking, he'll ask for a pint of the alcohol free in a Stella glass or a Madlery glass or something, and then goes back to the table and says, all right, lads, there you go. And that needs to stop. It needs to be actually, I'm going to, either you call it flexi drinking or as is called by some people, zebra striping, the ability to go, well, I'm going to have 1 full strength when I first arrive and a couple of non-alcs and then maybe 1 full strength to go back. That should become normal. It shouldn't become questioned. And if I can play a part, I mean, I know to my personal cost, you know, I never wanted to be divorced. I never wanted to lose my family home. But all of that came as a result of me becoming out of control. I always say I was a switch, not a dial. The problem was I was either on or off. I couldn't have that whole, I'll just have 1 or 2, you know. So if I can provide choice, if I can get people to try it and try it with an open mind, go into a pub with an alcohol-free beer on draft and just have a half and just see what it is like. You know, if you're up in Harrogate, go into the Coldbath Clubhouse and ask for a half of 1571 and tell me that it isn't a great beer. It is a great beer. It just happens to have no alcohol in it. And that's the thing, that if I can play a part in that and hopefully also help independent venues who need to expand their product portfolio because they're all struggling, then that's great. And I will continue to do that as much as possible.
Lovely, that's a great share. Thanks, Andy. So just before we wrap the interview up, in terms of people who would like to contact you, if you've got any latest news, things, events coming up, where you're going to be, or simply sharing your website again, where people
for sure. Well, I try and do a few trade events. I was at the York Camera Beer Festival trade afternoon last week. I'm doing the one in Nottingham in a couple of weeks' time, and I'm also going to be at the one in Sheffield. And I will be exhibiting at Northern Restaurant and Bar again this coming March. And basically, very easy to contact. Alcoholfreedrinks.co.uk is the website. I'm on LinkedIn, and very happy to talk to people who want to try stuff. You know, I even split down cases for people and just say, look, you can have a mixed case. Just put it on the menu. Just try it and try and see what your customer's reaction to it is. Because unless they try it, they're never going to find out. So and I'm more than happy to talk to anybody really about what I do. And as I say, I am very, very driven. I started the company when I was 58. I turned 63 in 2 weeks' time, and I've never felt more alive in business. I never felt more. Yeah, occasionally the bones ache a little bit more in the morning, but to the motivation to get up and get going, I've never had it more.
That's great. A great note to end on. Definitely a business with passion and purpose. Thank you for sharing that, Andy. Really appreciate it. And yeah, I wish you all the best for the future of the business.